So I'm going to work on making a bracket to create a pulley system for the snow bike and or spare tire and whatever else. So I went over to my buddy's house, took that sheet of aluminum, which I bought in the scrap pile. It's a 1/4 inch. It's a 3x5 sheet, 2.5 by 5. Had them cut these pieces out, and basically what I'm going to do is weld this 1/4 inch together and then put it up under the roof, and these guys are going to hang out away from the roof, and I'm going to bolt this, all this to the bottom corner of the roof. Let me show you. Basically, that's going to sit like that with those two pieces of 2-inch and 3-inch welded on, and then they will get bolted there and there. But that's how this is going to set, and I think this is also going to create a shelf for the future air conditioner. It's a thought anyway. So that's what I'm working on. Let's put this baby together. Well, when you run an entire bead, I actually spot welded it and then switched where I welded, but it was continuous bead. This thing had a 1/4 inch of deflection this way, so I just put my bead tank on it and dropped it down. I'm going to pull the weight off and see if she'll hold straight. And now she's lifted up about almost 1/8 inch on that end. That I think I can deal with. It was way out of whack. So welding aluminum, I don't care what size it is, it moves. All right, guys. So I've been able to straighten my 2x3 angle iron that I built out of 1/4 inch. And the reason I need 2x3 is because I wanted to use 2-inch to cover the 2-inch I have, and then 3-inch to go all the way under the roof edge. So I've ground this down, ground the roof down a little bit, and this little curve in here seems to fit pretty well. So now what I'm doing is I've evened up my brackets. You can see I'm just a mohair off on the angle. And what I'm doing down at that end is kind of pinching things tight, so that it fits nice and snugly. I've squared this up, and basically I'm going to weld this up. So looking from this side, this is actually going to tilt up like this. Hey, let's do this. So this bracket will actually be sitting like that on the rig, with the roof being here and going up. I'm going to have a hole in 2 of these, so I can span them and put a bolt between them and use that as a pulley system or a pulley spot. And then the rest of it, I'm going to have 1/4 inch on top of this, and that's going to be my decking for the air conditioner, I think. So that's step 2. I am now working on tacking these guys into place. I'll get all 3 of them. I have 2 that are about 3 inches apart for the pulley, and then the other one spanned the other 32 inches. So that is the start of my bracket for the snow bike lift and air conditioner. Well, a couple hours down, and I'm about halfway through this thing. I still have to put the deck on for the AC unit, face the front edge, but that is pretty much what it's going to look like. Obviously she sits like that when it's said and done. 1/4 inch aluminum, not light, but lighter than steel. So it's getting there, guys. Well, after you weld some aluminum pieces, you're gonna find that you may have to move them around a little bit. I've had to kind of draw things together with this big one because I had a gap down here, almost 3/8 of an inch of a gap, because this guy was just a hair off. So I have things clamped in place. I'm going to weld my top plate that will hopefully eventually hold the AC unit. There's the bottom side. I have my holes drilled for mounting onto the rig, and I have the holes in the rig. If you can look real close up there, I have those holes. So I think I'm going to finish this off with a piece across the nose of this to give it some strength. That'll be 1/4 inch. And then I think I'm going to cover the belly to about here so I can still get access to these guys just to kind of clean it up a bit, but maybe not. I may just end up covering this mess over here. Anyway, getting ready to weld the rest of this together and hopefully put it on the truck and see if it works. Wish me luck, guys. Well, that is pretty much it, boys and girls. I thought I'd do a quick video while it's sitting on the bench. Obviously, this is the part that mounts to the rig. That is the deck. And that's the bottom. I still have enough room, I think, to get to all my bolts. And this guy right here is where I'm going to throw a bolt through and mount my pulleys. So I've cut a lot of the aluminum on the rig with my chop saw with a bimetal blade, but stuff like this that I've had to run a circular saw over, I've actually used this guy. And what it is just my 6.5 inch DeWalt. And here's the crazy thing. I've been using a plywood blade. I'm pretty sure that might be a 24 tooth. I think it's still the 40 tooth. Anyway, it is unbelievable how well that thing goes through aluminum. It cut through this 1/4 inch aluminum. My buddy cut these pieces with his Porter cable, and I think I actually had an easier time with that guy. Crazy. So there it is. I'm gonna throw it up on the rig, throw the pulley up, and see if I can get that son of a gun hoisted up on the back of the truck. So I can do a little post-Christmas snow biking. Let's see what happens. Well, the time has come. It's up and mounted. Sorry, the ladder's in the way. But you guys can get the idea. So I have a bolt through this 1/4 inch plate with a ferrule and a grommet, whatever those little U-shaped things are, up to another one, and then I have a turnbuckle. I welded on an aluminum stud, just a 1 inch, 1.25 inch chunk of aluminum tube, put a bolt through it, and that's how I hooked up the turnbuckles on both sides. And it seems to work pretty well. They actually pull a lot of weight because I can actually tighten this one and it loosens that one up. So I know these things are moving this a little bit, so I know they'll carry a ton of weight, but that should work. There's the top of it. The AC unit will sit on there. And obviously there's the bottom of it. I have access to all my bolts, even those guys. And I don't have a carabiner that'll fit up into my hole. I have another bolt through the 2 3-inch. Basically there's 2 3-inch, 1/4 inch aluminum pieces there. And you can see I started playing with the pulleys. I have 3 pulleys up here, a double, and then a single, and then I have 2 more down there. So basically, see. So basically, I should have a 5-to-1 advantage with the number of pulleys I have set up. And I'm testing it out with a little block, and I think that block is 76 pounds. Don't quote me on that. So I have my standing line tied off to the hitch, and I have my working line in my hand. The rest of the other, let's see, is it 4 or 5? It's 5 because I have, that's double, triple, quadruple. Yeah, I think it's 5 times the pulling power. So basically this block, I can pick it up, but man, that takes about everything I have. That thing weighs about half of what I do, for a point of reference. So here's one hand pulling, not really hard, pulling that sucker off the ground, and I can pull that up relatively easily. So my hope is, we're gonna find out, if I can get this guy lifted up and behind the truck. I have yet to figure out how it's gonna fit back there, but I'm gonna try to lift it up. So let's see how that goes. Well guys, it is time to test out the rig. It is time to test out my little invention and see how it works. I have 4 up top, 3 in the bottom. And I'll have to come up with something a little prettier, but that seems to look okay. I've also shortened, I took the strap out of the bolt up top and I put a quick link in. And I think I've got this thing pretty well centered, so it'll come up the same. But let's see. Oh my goodness. I know, crazy. Well, it is off the ground, and I don't think the pulleys are a 7-to-1 advantage, because theoretically I should be putting about 40 pounds of weight behind that thing, and it took a bit more than that. I think I have a lot going on as far as drag in spots. So I'll have to refine that a little bit, but it looks like, I'm gonna check the rack and make sure nothing's tweaking, but it sure doesn't look like it is. I haven't quite figured out how that thing's gonna ride up there yet. I'm gonna put a deck out from the hitch. But yeah. The other thing is I gotta figure out where my taillights are gonna go, so I may end up bringing this up another 1.5 feet or so and creating a custom rack. So you might be asking yourself, dang Sean, why don't you just put a winch down there and just winch it up? Super easy. Well, I might. This is kind of a quick fix for me to be able to get this out in the next day or so I can hang with my friends and get this up in the mountain, because I don't have much of a better way to get it up there. I could take my 4-place snowmobile trailer, but that's a lot for just that. And this is how this is hopefully gonna work in the future. Certainly the motorcycle will be a piece of cake. This thing weighs about I think right around 300 pounds. Motorcycle's probably closer to 2. So if I can get this up, I can certainly get the motorcycle up. And the thing about the ropes and the pulleys, I know it looks super complicated, but I don't have to worry about mounting a winch, which I would have to probably mount down here someplace, and then getting 12 volts to it, although not a big deal. But for now, I like being kind of crafty. So timber sled in the air behind the expedition vehicle. Still have to figure out how it's gonna get mounted, but it's hanging. So I call that a success, guys. Definitely a success. Well, it's almost at travel height. The front ski is above the light, and the back track obviously is hanging a little low. What I think I'll end up doing, eventually the deck's gonna come out for this to set on, and it'll set basically where it's at, and it will ride pretty much like that on the back of the truck. The only downside is, let's see, that is hanging out maybe 6 or 8 inches past the truck. And the ski will actually fold up, and where is it? That is this guy is the frontmost part, so the sled's gonna come this way and the ski's gonna go vertical, I think. And yeah, so it's gonna hang over a couple inches on either side, which I think is still legal, I think. So that's it, guys. Timber sled on the back of an expedition vehicle. You don't see that every day. It is a cold, gray December morning, and I am ready to move the rig. Slide outs are in, roof is down, and guess what? I got a snow bike on the back of the truck. And technically you can still see the brakes and the license plate if you're driving a Fiero. But no, the roof is down. You can see I have my lifting straps carabinered to the rack, and I have this thing strapped like crazy. I have this guy strapped back here so that the bike doesn't wobble much. And I have them strapped down here to kind of pull a little tension on it. And then obviously I have the bike strapped down, and I'm gonna get a few different straps. I'm not fond of these tension straps because they're not, it's hard to get them super tight. I like the ratchet style better, and I really want this thing to kind of sit nice and snug. So you can see I had to take the ski off, and I'll eventually just mount it down there. And I actually bolted this thing to an extension I made just from scrap steel I had laying around. But yeah. I got a snow bike on the back of my truck. I cannot tell you how happy I am that this actually worked out. It is actually relatively easy to get this thing up there. Once I had my pulley system set in place, I just lifted it up, tied it off, threw the rack in, lowered it down, bolted it up, and I'm ready to hit the road. So there you go, guys. A KTM XCF 450 with a raw 120 timber sled on the back of my truck, ready to tear it up in the mountains. Thanks for watching, guys. That's the end of this episode. As always, subscribe, like, comment. I can tell you what I did to make this work. If I didn't mention it in the video, you can always ask me a question. Thanks so much.